One of the most feverishly discussed movies in years is Megalopolis, Francis Ford Coppola's 4 decades in the making passion project, the movie that he cashed in his wine empire to fund. The $120 million independent movie that every studio in Hollywood is declining to buy because they think it is too goddamn weird to appeal to a wide audience. Whatever this movie is, and it's probably the most gonzo movie of the year, it was finally going to be unveiled to the public at this year's Cannes Film Festival. So naturally, I had to go see it for myself.
Bonjour et bienvenue au Festival de Cannes, the world's biggest, best-known, most prestigious film festival. The 2 weeks of the year when all of international film culture descends on the south of France to put on tuxedos, watch movies, and clap until their hands go numb. When you're an American movie fan monitoring it from abroad, Cannes seems pretty much utterly unattainable. It's totally extravagant, it's the French Riviera, there are yachts everywhere, people in black tie watching movies at this place called the Grand Palais. It's the place where, every year, these major movies from the world's best filmmakers premiere, and then everyone else in the world has to wait like 6 months to watch them. And then, sometimes, like last year, they premiere Elemental here, which no one can explain. But here's the twist. You can actually just go to Cannes, no pun intended. Yeah, you've got to travel there and get a place to stay, but it's not as stupidly expensive as it seems, especially when you share an Airbnb with a bunch of friends. My friends who I'm sharing the place with had been here for a full week already, seeing dozens of movies, cranking out tons of reviews, doing interviews, like proper journalist stuff. But I'm a slacker who's only making one video out of the entire festival, so I just showed up halfway through to stay for the second week.
Caught by the Tides is playing at 3, but it might get out in time for...
Hey guys, do you know when Megalopolis is playing again?
It's not.
You missed it. It played last week.
What? Shit.
Why'd you get here so late?
I was busy. I had an important business in Sweden.
So anyway, even though I missed Megalopolis, there were still a ton of movies to see. Here's the morning routine when you're at Cannes. Every morning, tickets become available at 7 a.m. So you set your alarm for 6:45, and stagger out of bed, and then refresh the page over and over again until it loads, and then you frantically try to grab tickets that will be totally gone in 30 seconds. And then, if you miss something, you spend the rest of the day also refreshing the page over and over again to see if any open up, or you try to find a friend who has an extra one. So I managed to see a bunch of movies months before they're gonna open to the public. So here's what I saw.
Hello and welcome to this hotel room in Switzerland that Nobles had booked, and look, we all know I don't love praising Nobles, but so far this trip he put together, it's not bad. It's not bad. But anyway, the first movie that I saw at the festival was Horizon, an American Saga, Chapter 1. The first part of Kevin Costner's epic 2-part Western movie event that he left the most popular show on television to make, and partly self-funded, and revealed at the Cannes premiere that it's actually gonna be a 4-part Western movie event. Now, I had honestly been pretty excited about Horizon. Costner is, I think, a solid director, and it's so rare that we get this kind of big original movie with a budget of over $100 million, especially one that's a Western. And so it brings me no pleasure to say that I didn't think the movie was very good. It is 3 hours long, and every hour, Costner introduces a new storyline with a new set of characters, which really just made the whole thing feel like we were watching the first 3 episodes of an okay TV series. And now with the information that there will be 4 of these in total, Kevin, you just made a 12-hour TV miniseries. Like, if you want to make a movie, then make a movie. Horizon just stops after 3 hours. There isn't even a cliffhanger like at the end of Across the Spider-Verse, or like a transition point in the story like at the end of Dune Part 1. It just stops, and then plays this long montage that's really just a next time on Horizon preview. Although, I must admit, the preview for Chapter 2, it did look kind of cool. There's like a stagecoach chase, and it ends on this really dramatic close-up of Giovanni Ribisi looking out a window, which I just thought was funny. So yeah, I'll probably still go see it. Also, that shot that the whole teaser trailer was built around, the one with Costner on the horse firing the shotgun, that isn't even in Part 1. It's in the preview for Part 2, so we still don't know who he's shooting at. At the beginning of the movie, there's this big raid on a group of settlers by a band of Apache, which is both the most exciting part of the movie and also a bit troubling, because you're like, wait, is this just taking us back 80 years with the evil Indians trope? And then the movie does spend a bit of time with the tribes, and it makes it clear that this raid was only carried out by like a fringe group, and that the rest of them are not so violent. But across the 3 hours, the movie seems to be way more interested in the many, many white settler characters than it is in any of the people who lived there first. But also, because this is only the first 25% of the story, I have no idea where it's going, so maybe this will all pay off and become really satisfying, but also, since it's being released in theaters on its own as a movie that people will pay money to see, overall, it's a less satisfying experience than even, like, Fast X. Okay, so the next movie that I saw was The Apprentice. That's right, the Donald Trump biopic. A movie that right now you're probably thinking, who asked for this? For what feels like a lifetime, we have been unable to escape the word Trump, or the sight of him, or the sound of his voice, and currently there's a very real chance that he could become president again. Now, here's a movie about him, starring Sebastian Stan, which is really just way too flattering to Trump. But then, the movie is directed by Ali Abbasi, the guy who made Holy Spider, so this could be more interesting than it seems. So this might be surprising, but Cannes this year is actually the first film festival I've ever gone to, outside of like a couple screenings at the New York Film Festival. So this experience of seeing movies before there's even a trailer out is new to me. If you think about it, almost any time that we watch a movie, especially a new one in theaters, we're seeing it after the marketing and the critical reviews and the general word of mouth has colored our expectations. But here at Cannes, no one has seen this thing. I barely know anything about it. I don't even know who else is in the movie. So there are no expectations other than, I hope I like it. And honestly, I kinda did. Look, let me be clear. I do think that The Apprentice is ultimately kind of empty. It doesn't really have any new perspective on Donald Trump. Like, at the end of the movie, you go, well, what I take from this is that he is a totally monstrous piece of shit. Yep, okay, I already knew that. And there are parts in the movie that hint at his future career in politics in like a very biopic way. And yeah, duh, we know where his story eventually goes, and none of us like it. But that said, the actual drama of the movie is pretty compelling. It takes place from the late 70s through the mid 80s, and it's mostly about the relationship between young, awkward, ambitious Donald Trump and Roy Cohn, who becomes his mentor. Jeremy Strong plays Roy Cohn, and both he and Sebastian Stan are pretty fantastic. They manage to avoid the SNL-type impressions that would be really easy to fall into, and they form real characters. Like at the very beginning, it's really weird seeing Stan there in the hair and makeup as young Trump, and then Strong shows up and he is doing a voice. And at first I was like, uh-oh, is this just gonna be really goofy? But no, these are actually like real performances and the drama works. And it's shot with this interesting visual style that becomes more and more like a gaudy, ugly 80s VHS tape as it goes on. Like, this movie does not look slick or cool. I'm really fascinated to see what happens once this gets released, because the thing is, the movie is entertaining enough and it's about a huge enough topic that it could be a real mainstream hit. And if it gets a major studio release, then I'm expecting a very dumb Joker-like pre-release freakout, where people are afraid that this movie is going to make people vote for Trump. Like, yes, inevitably some morons will watch this and think that it makes Trump look cool, but those people were already stupid. They were already a lost cause. This movie is not going to convince any people to vote for him who weren't going to already. Like, it's way less fun and glamorous than The Wolf of Wall Street. Okay, minor spoilers here, but it's pretty insane to have a movie come out in an election year that has a scene portraying one of the major presidential candidates committing sexual assault. Like, that is a thing that happens in the movie, and so, yeah, I'm really curious how people react to this. So we all know that the big grand prize at Cannes is the Palme d'Or, but what you might not know is that during the festival, they actually give out a few honorary Palme d'Ors in their own special ceremonies. Like, at the start of the festival, Meryl Streep got one, but that happened before I arrived. But on my first day, they had the one that I really cared about. An honorary Palme given to Studio Ghibli. Now, in classic Miyazaki fashion, he didn't show up. Hayao Miyazaki is a delightfully grumpy old man who doesn't even leave home to collect the multiple Oscars that he's won. So back in Japan, he and producer Suzuki recorded a little video to say thank you, and in their place, they sent Miyazaki's son, Goro. If you're not familiar with Goro Miyazaki, here's all you really need to know. He is the son of the greatest animation director of all time, one of our greatest living filmmakers, and he has a very complicated relationship with his dad. Hayao was always pretty distant, it seems, and maybe not that great a dad. He was way more concerned with his work than, hanging out with his son. And then many years later, Goro, who was originally a landscape architect, started directing movies for Ghibli as well. And he just doesn't really have the juice. He's not a terrible filmmaker, but he's definitely not his dad. And his dad has never really publicly praised Goro. Reports are that he's been kind of dismissive of his work. And so, even though Goro isn't a great filmmaker, I can't help but root for him. Like, look, the guy is in a tough spot. He's trying his best, and he just wants some recognition from his distant, brilliant father. And so this ceremony was really heartwarming. Like, to see Goro get the spotlight as everyone cheers for him, and hey, they even included clips from his movies in the highlight reel. Goro was clearly having a great time. He was mugging for the camera, tearing up, getting emotional. It was so nice, and even though we were mostly there to celebrate the work of his dad, you could tell that the audience was really happy for Goro. But I have to say, the real highlight was at the ceremony, they screened 4 short films by Miyazaki, as in Hayao Miyazaki, Goro's dad, the genius. And these were shorts that had been made especially for the Ghibli Museum in Japan, shorts that had never been screened anywhere else. One of them was even a Totoro short film called May and the Baby Cat Bus. Now, I'm not gonna bore you with just recapping the shorts here, but it was an hour of new Miyazaki work that I had never seen before, including some that is way more experimental than anything in his feature films. So it was wonderful. It was one of the highlights of the entire week. I don't care if these aren't technically new, they were new to me, and I loved them so much. My first full day at Cannes was really packed, with 4 screenings, and the final one, at 10 p.m., was for The Shrouds, the new film from David Cronenberg. This movie is very much Cronenberg's way of processing the death of his wife, who died of cancer in 2017, and the grief that he felt after. It stars Vincent Cassel, who is made up to look just like Cronenberg, playing a character whose wife has recently died of cancer. And he's trying to move on, but he's also obsessed with her death and invents a system that allows him to watch the decaying of her corpse. So what I'm saying is, yes, it is a David Cronenberg movie. It is obsessed with the breakdown of the human body and its relationship with technology. Now, I love Cronenberg, even if I'm more lukewarm on his later period work. And this movie is honestly kind of baffling. The performances are deliberately very stiff, and it ultimately never really goes anywhere, despite occasionally flirting with turning into a thriller. Like, Guy Pearce is in the movie, and he sometimes gets obsessed with these conspiracy theories and will start ranting about espionage stuff. And this is where I should probably mention that I had not slept enough the previous couple nights before watching this movie. And again, it was a 10 p.m. screening, and so I would occasionally nod off for a second, and then, even though I just missed a few seconds, the next scene would be so odd and such a weird shift from what had been happening before that I would then start wondering if I had slept longer than I actually had and had dreamt the previous scenes. Look, this is a movie that I would not want to properly review without watching it again. Afterwards, when we were all talking about it, no one really seemed sure what to make of it. But I will say that afterwards, the next day, the more I thought back on it, the more fondly I thought of it. It's weird and it's personal, and it does have some great scenes, especially the ones with Cassel and Diane Kruger, who plays both his deceased wife in flashbacks and her twin sister in the present. It's a weird movie. The following night, I saw Paolo Sorrentino's Parthenope, which turned out to be one of my favorite movies of the whole festival. I'll put it this way. This was a 10:30 p.m. screening of a movie that was over 2 hours long, and I was wide awake for every second of it. I did talk to a bunch of people during the festival who weren't crazy about this one, but I don't know, I found it totally entrancing. This is the new movie from a director who previously made films called The Great Beauty and Youth. And here, it's like he went, what if I just made one film about both of those things? So it follows the title character, a young woman in Naples, Italy in the 1970s, who is so staggeringly beautiful that basically every person she encounters becomes completely enraptured by her. And as the years pass and she tries to figure out who she is beyond just being really, really ridiculously good looking. She encounters this whole collection of fun characters, including Gary Oldman as an alcoholic old writer. She flirts with different careers, like acting. She studies anthropology, and basically takes us through a whole collection of lovely little episodes. Parthenope is a gorgeous summer holiday of a movie, about the seemingly infinite possibilities of being young and beautiful and living in the most astoundingly gorgeous place on Earth. And as that holiday goes on, eventually you want to do more than just hang out in the sun. And that, I would say, is what the movie is basically about. My friend Hui Chen, who's the entertainment editor at Inverse, compared it to The Worst Person in the World. And I know that seems like super high praise, but there are definite similarities there, despite its very different vibe and setting. But yeah, so that's my pitch for you. Parthenope is like a dreamy, sunny, Italian Worst Person in the World, where every scene looks like a perfume commercial. Anyway, A24 has already picked this one up, and so it'll come out sometime later this year. And I highly recommend you check it out. At the Cannes Film Festival, they always have some big movies premiere out of competition. Usually they're big Hollywood movies. So like Horizon, the Kevin Costner one, that was one of these. And the other big out of competition movie this year was George Miller's Furiosa, which premiered the week before I arrived.
Heard good things about Bird. Think it has a good chance?
I didn't
get to watch it.
Hey guys, do you know when Furiosa's playing again?
It's not.
You missed it. It played last week.
What? Shit.
You do know it opens in regular theaters tomorrow though, right?
Oh. Well, that's good news.
And so, since it was May 22nd, I bought a ticket for Furiosa online and took the bus over to the Cineum IMAX Theater here in Cannes, where I was excited to watch the movie with a regular non-festival audience and see what normal moviegoing is like in France.
Well, folks, heartbreaking news. So, Furiosa started, and it became clear immediately that it was dubbed into French with no English subtitles. So I thought about it for a few seconds and decided it's not worth it. I want to watch the movie properly. I know it's a very visual movie, but I still want to hear and understand the dialogue said by the actual actors, and so I bailed. And I haven't seen it, and I'm very sad. This sucks.
Look, I know this seems stupid, but I searched the website all over for some information about what language it was in. It didn't say anywhere. I was not the only person this happened to. There were other Americans there who left when I did because they also thought it was going to be in English. And look, in Switzerland, in Sweden, when they release English language movies, they play them in English and subtitle them in French or German or Swedish. Why does France have to be difficult? What's the deal, France? Come on. Okay, thankfully, the next day went much better. My one screening on Thursday was for Sean Baker's Anora, the movie that, as you might know, went on to win the Palme d'Or. It was the big winner of the whole festival. And it's a winner that I really don't think anyone was upset about because literally every person I talked to loved this movie. And that includes me. This movie might actually be my favorite thing out of the entire festival. It's awesome. So this is pretty much what we expect from a Sean Baker movie. It's a very human story following the types of people that we rarely see in movies, usually sex workers. Anora is about an escort named Annie, who lives in New York City, who has a fling with the son of a Russian billionaire and gets caught up in his carefree, luxurious, ultra-wealthy world. It's kinda like a weird spin on Pretty Woman. And then, of course, more stuff happens that I will not dare spoil, but I will just say that this is the most flat-out entertaining thing I saw at the festival, and surprisingly funny. So at this point, after Sean Baker's last 3 movies, I just generally expect his films to star, unknown non-actors, and so I assumed that Annie, the main character, was another first-time actor that he had discovered. Until about 30 minutes in, when I started to go, wait a second. Is that the girl from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Oh shit, yeah, that's Mikey Madison. So I enjoyed her in that movie and also in Scream, but this here is an instant, spectacular star-making performance. The whole supporting cast is great. There are some really wonderful characters in this movie, but she just owns and totally dominates the whole thing. Look, I'm not gonna just keep repeating myself and saying everything is great, but this movie is a fucking blast, and you're all gonna go see it when it opens this fall. And yeah, you should be excited, because it's great. One of the legendary things about Cannes is the insane standing ovations. You'll see all of these headlines that are like, movie premieres to 10-minute standing ovation, or movie only gets a pathetic 6-minute standing ovation, which actually means that it sucks and people hated it. So here's how all of this actually works. All of the in-competition movies, as well as the couple out-of-competition movies that I mentioned earlier, they get premieres. These are full, big, red carpet premieres that happen in the Grand Theatre Lumiere, the one with the big red carpet and the steps out front. You've seen it before. And if you have a pass for the festival, you can totally get tickets for the premieres just like any other screening. The one rule is just that if the premiere is in the evening, then there is a black tie dress code. Which means that for women, you can kind of just wear any nice dress, and for men, you show up in a tux or you walk home. Siddhant went to one evening premiere for a movie that I will talk about in a few minutes, and for that, he just rented a tux from a place in town, and I took pictures of him and felt like a proud dad before the prom. I, on the other hand, was just too lazy to bother renting a tux for anything. I don't know, maybe if I come next year, I'll do it then, but here's the thing. If a premiere is in the afternoon, then no tux needed. You can just show up dressed however you want, and you still walk up the red carpet. I mean, yeah, the ushers are rushing you up so you can't really stop and take pictures, but you walk up the red carpet. And so I went to one premiere in the afternoon for the Iranian film The Seed of the Sacred Fig, and I got to take part in what Variety tells me was a 12-minute standing ovation, the biggest one of the entire festival. So in case you were wondering, here's what that looks like. So see, they've got a camera on the director and the stars, so we have something to look at and applaud to. We're not just standing there clapping at nothing. But anyway, what about the actual movie that earned this huge standing ovation? So the whole story surrounding this one is probably the most exciting thing that happened at Cannes this year. This movie, from director Mohammad Rasulov, is about a family in Iran where the father works as an interrogator for the government, as his job imprisoning people suspected of dissent starts to fracture his family. So as you can probably imagine, this movie is extremely critical of the current Iranian government, to the point that Rasulov, who has been imprisoned before, was sentenced to 8 years in prison just for making the movie. So no one knew if he would actually be at Cannes at all, but he managed to flee Iran and make it here for the premiere, where he held up photos of two of the film's stars who hadn't been able to make it out of Iran, one of whom was apparently arrested by Iranian authorities that week. This is obviously an amazing story, and it would be easy to say that the movie won the Best Director award just because of the story here, but I'm gonna say no. It actually won because it earned it, because the movie is great. Like, I know that The Seed of the Sacred Fig sounds like a parody of a depressing art house movie, but I promise that this thing is actually a pretty riveting thriller. It's about a family in Tehran with two teenage daughters and a father who has spent years working for the government. But then, when he gets a promotion to become one of the people who interrogates potential dissidents and literally signs death warrants, it slowly creates tensions in his family that steadily escalate for the rest of the film, especially as his daughters become more concerned with protests happening in the city that involve their friends from school. This is not a documentary, but it's set during the 2022 Gina Revolution, and frequently uses actual news footage and cell phone videos recorded during the actual events. For people like me, who are embarrassingly ignorant about Iranian culture and politics, this movie is a great window into those, and beyond that, it's just a really compelling story that earned multiple applause breaks from the audience, and it builds to this incredible ending. This movie would probably not have been on my radar at all if not for Cannes, and so I'm so glad that I was there to see it. Okay, you can see the light changing as the sun is going down outside. So anyway, one of the last movies that I caught was Emilia Perez from Jacques Audiard, director of A Prophet and The Sisters Brothers and Rust and Bone. So I had heard great things about this one, but I knew nothing about it other than that Zoe Saldana was in it. And let me tell you, this is a hell of a movie to walk into knowing nothing about. So, if you want to see it like I did when it comes out, knowing absolutely nothing other than that Zoe Saldana is in it, then you can skip ahead to this time code. Okay, I'm going to talk again now. So, Emilia Perez is a crime drama musical about a lawyer in Central America who gets kidnapped by the head of a drug cartel, and he wants to hire her for a very specific job. See, he's trans and needs someone to arrange all the details for him to secretly get gender-affirming surgery and fake his death to start a new life as a woman with a new name and for his family to be taken care of. Also, Selena Gomez plays the drug lord's wife. And so you might be thinking, like I did, that, oh, the whole movie is gonna be about, her trying to set up this new life and, arrange everything. Nope. The drug lord transitions 30 minutes into the movie, and then way more stuff happens from there. So this year, the Cannes jury, led by Greta Gerwig, kind of bent the rules and gave the Best Actress award to the whole female cast of this movie. And I get it. Everyone is great, and other than Edgar Ramirez in a surprisingly small role, this movie is basically all just about the relationships between these women. And this also makes Carla Sofia Gascon the first trans actor to win an award at Cannes, which is a big deal. I've seen a lot of reviews that compare the movie to a soap opera with the word melodrama getting thrown around, and honestly, I don't get it. Just because it's a drama largely set in Mexico, that doesn't make it a telenovela. There's nothing campy or ironic about this. It's very serious and very sincere, and also, again, I feel like I didn't stress this enough, it's a musical. It's this mix of genres and ideas that, on paper, kind of sounds like a disaster, but I don't know, it really worked for me. I think this movie rocks, and I'm sorry to say that it got picked up by Netflix, because I think this is a movie that could be a real hit in theaters and could really be big for a lot of people, but yeah, it's not gonna get the attention it deserves, and I think that's a huge bummer. I also went to a screening of Jia Zhangke's latest film, Caught by the Tides, and folks, I've gotta be honest with you, here I just picked the wrong movie at the wrong time. It was the last day of the festival, I was exhausted, I got up really early that day, I did not have enough coffee, and this movie is absolutely what you could call slow cinema. So I think I dozed off for maybe half of it. So in the parts where I was awake, I was trying to piece together what I'd missed, and in the last half hour, I was more alert and starting to get into it, and then the movie ended. So look, I want to be very clear. This is not a judgment on the movie itself. What I've learned from talking to friends with more Cannes experience than me, and really just like more film festival experience in general, is that everyone inevitably falls asleep. The whole festival is exhausting. You're staying up late and getting up early and running around all day, and sometimes when you sit down in a comfy chair in a dark room, your body just decides, now is the time to catch up on all that sleep that you missed. It happens to everybody, and it happens to me. So yes, I will definitely catch up with Caught by the Tides when it gets released later this year, but as of now, I can't in good conscience have any coherent statement on it. So if you were really excited to hear my thoughts on that movie, I'm sorry. And the final movie that I saw at Cannes, as in at 9:30 p.m. on the final day of the festival, after the whole awards ceremony, was All We Imagine as Light, the second film and first narrative feature from Payal Kapadia. And this was a huge deal because it was the first movie from India to play in competition at Cannes in 30 years. For the country that produces more movies than any other, this is crazy. This movie won the Grand Prix, which is a pretty huge deal for Indian cinema, and a huge deal for Kapadia, a young director who is now 2 for 2. Her first film, A Night of Knowing Nothing, is on Criterion Channel right now, and you should check it out. So this movie is not at all what most Westerners would expect from an Indian film. This is not at all a Bollywood movie. There's no singing or dancing or over-the-top action. It's like a gentle, poetic drama about human relationships in the vast sprawl of Mumbai, a city that's so enormous and overwhelming it can feel like it's swallowing you up. It focuses on 3 women who work at a hospital. One is a Hindu who's dating a Muslim guy, which, leads to complications and difficulties. Her roommate, who's several years older, has a husband from an arranged marriage who moved to Germany for work and she hasn't spoken to him in over a year. And the third, a widow, is being forced out of her home by land developers and eventually decides to move back to her childhood home, a small village by the sea, and so the other 2 women travel out there with her to help her move. Even though it was the last day of the festival, and as I just mentioned, I was really exhausted, I found this to be totally engrossing, as a portrait of modern India, as a story about these friendships, and as just a really exquisite piece of filmmaking with cinematography composed largely of these rich pastel blues and greens, a far cry from the standard ugly yellow filter we're used to seeing this country through in Western movies. I really want to have more intelligent thoughts to say about this one, but again, I was extremely tired when I saw it, so just get back to me in the fall once I've had a chance to see it again. But I can say right now, it is definitely one that you're gonna wanna look out for when it comes out. But for now, we have to move on to something extremely important. And for this, we are going to change locations because in a few minutes, I have to check out of this hotel. Transition.
And then I learned a very important thing about Cannes. On the last day of the festival, Saturday, they replay all the in-competition movies, and that means Megalopolis. So I grabbed a ticket for it, and by that, I mean my friend Siddhant got one, and he gave it to me because he had already seen it, and he's a very nice guy. Go read his review. It's excellent.
Okay, welcome to a new hotel room, this time in Sweden. But anyway, okay, the reason that you are here, the reason you clicked on this video, I assume, Megalopolis. I saw it, I've seen the movie, and I'm here to talk about it. So, the big question that everyone's wondering, is it good? Is it bad? The answer is yes, it's both. A lot of it does not work. I think the movie is a mess, and overall, I feel pretty positive about it. I'll tell you one thing, I was never bored, and I really want to watch it again. Because the thing about Megalopolis that you have to understand is that this is one of the most insane things I've ever seen. And look, I want to be clear about what I mean when I say it's insane. I don't mean that it has like a really wild, shocking story. So like, if anyone's seen the movie Titan, I don't know, that won the Palme d'Or a couple of years ago. It's about a woman who has sex with a car and is impregnated. So like, that's insane. But Megalopolis is insane in different ways because in Megalopolis, like everything about it is weird. Nothing about it is like a normal movie. So it begins, and the opening title appears, and it announces itself as a fable. Not a rock and roll fable, there's only one of those. And then it proceeds to introduce us to the city of New Rome in the 23rd century, which is really like modern day New York City mashed up with the Roman Empire. So most of the characters have names like Caesar or Crassus. Madison Square Garden is a coliseum with chariot races and gladiatorial combat. If the meme is true and all men think about the Roman Empire every day, then based on watching this, I'm going to say that no man has ever thought more about the Roman Empire than Francis Ford Coppola. The thing you realize quickly in the movie is that basically everything in it is metaphorical. The characters are more stand-ins for ideas than three-dimensional humans with complex emotions, which is good because basically everybody in the movie seems to have arrived from a different movie. Adam Driver is here giving a very serious Adam Driver performance. And then there's SNL's Chloe Fineman as a wacky party girl. And then Shia LaBeouf keeps showing up seeming like he walked out of Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. This is a movie where, during a big dialogue scene between all the major characters, Adam Driver just suddenly recites the entire to be or not to be monologue from Hamlet. In another scene, Giancarlo Esposito and Natalie Emmanuel just start speaking to each other in Latin for like the whole scene. Also, Aubrey Plaza plays a TV news anchor named Wow Platinum, who at one point marries John Voight. Sometimes the characters will drive past like these giant statues that seem to be alive, like Lady Justice walking down the street, leaning against a building, exhausted. And yes, I understand that that's not meant to be taken literally. Like I said, everything in the movie is metaphorical. Oh, also, I forgot to mention that Adam Driver's character has the ability to freeze time, which, believe it or not, is actually way less important to the plot than you would think. But for all this weird stuff, nothing compares to the scene where Driver's character is giving a press conference, and then in the theater, like the actual theater where we're watching the movie, an actor gets up from the front row and walks to the front of the theater with a microphone stand, and he asks Adam Driver on screen a question, and then on screen, Adam Driver responds. Like, this is not a guy disrupting the screening. This is part of the movie. This is an element of live theater incorporated into the movie. I have seen some shit in my life, but I've never seen a movie do that. So how is that going to work when the movie inevitably gets released in theaters? I have no idea, but let me tell you, it is pretty wild to see it happen. So much of the experience of watching Megalopolis for the first time is just getting used to its whole weird thing and like reconfiguring your brain and your expectations just to get used to how strange the whole thing is. But okay, beyond all the weirdness, what is the actual story of the movie? So, Megalopolis is about a guy named Caesar Catalina, who is a brilliant, infamous architect who has invented a new building material called megalon, and wants to use it to create a self-sustaining city of the future, essentially a utopia called Megalopolis. But this brings him into conflict with Mayor Cicero, who's more old school and has no time for these foolish ideas. This sounds simple enough, but there's a lot more going on than just that. Like, there's how Cicero used to be the DA, and years earlier he prosecuted Catalina, accused him of murdering his wife, which Catalina claims he did not do, and Megalon is also partly made from his dead wife's DNA, and then Catalina falls in love with Cicero's daughter, and she wants to learn how to control time like he does. Also, there's a Russian satellite that's going to maybe crash into the Earth and kill everybody. There's also Shia LaBeouf as Catalina's dirtbag cousin who's like scheming to run for office and take over the city. And also there are a lot more characters played by actors you know, such as Dustin Hoffman and Jason Schwartzman. But honestly, I cannot remember like what either of their roles were or what their deal was. Oh, there's also a whole subplot about this pop star whose whole thing is that she's a virgin, and then there's a sex scandal where she's accused of having an affair with Catalina. There's so much going on in this movie that eventually it just forgets that there was the whole Russian satellite thing and never actually resolves this. And so the whole time that you're thinking, what is going on in this movie? You're also going, and why does the movie look like that? I want to say, there are scenes that are gorgeous, like that early scene where Driver steps out onto the roof of the Chrysler building, or some of the like fever dream-esque montages. There is very striking imagery throughout this whole movie. But also, much of the cinematography is kind of flat and ugly, brightly lit without much camera movement, and a ton of unconvincing CGI backgrounds, which give it an oddly cheap appearance despite the fact that it cost over $100 million to make. With all the green-screened backgrounds and the many scenes of characters giving televised speeches, occasionally, this is gonna sound weird, but stick with me, occasionally it feels like a more expensive Neil Breen film. For a movie of such huge ambition and pretty sizable budget, it never really reaches the visual scope that it's begging for. Like, crowd scenes feel weirdly small. The film will cut from like a CGI establishing shot of a location to these static interior scenes. The city of New Rome never really feels like a real place. For a movie that is so ambitious and so excited about the future of cinema and all its possibilities, I found myself wishing that the actual filmmaking was as innovative as a lot of the rest of it. Coppola occasionally uses some classic silent film techniques like iris transitions, but in general it doesn't really have much of the lavish flair and style that he brought to Dracula, and I wish that it did. While I was watching Megalopolis, I actually found myself thinking a lot about the Wachowskis' Speed Racer. I know I think about that movie a lot, but it's relevant here. That's another all green screen, super digital movie. And if Megalopolis had more of Speed Racer's visual imagination and skill with reinventing cinematic language, then I think it would come a lot closer to achieving the kind of transcendence that Coppola is reaching for. Okay, watching this, you might be thinking, Patrick, admit the movie is bad. Just because it's weird and interesting doesn't mean that you have to like it. I know, I'm fully aware, and like I said, so much in the movie doesn't work. But the more time has passed and the more that I think about the movie, the more positive about it I feel. So why? Well, what you have to remember is that this is a deeply sincere movie. This is a movie that you can absolutely say is one from the heart. This is Coppola's grand statement about art and society and humanity. Now look, I'm not going to pretend that I understand every single bit of this movie, but some of the main messaging is pretty hard to miss. Like, the Rome stuff is there to compare our modern society to an empire from the past that eventually crashed and burned, with Coppola telling us that that's where we could be headed. And the potential savior, as represented by Catalina and his vision for this future utopia, is creativity and love. The detail where his late wife's DNA is being made into the very material with which he will build his utopia is him literally making art from his personal experiences, using his own love and loss to create his work. And I think that's a cool idea. Coppola's wife, Eleanor, passed away just a few weeks before the movie's premiere at Cannes. And watching the movie, it would be easy to imagine that this was a case like The Shrouds, with the film being explicitly about her passing. Instead, it's just a tragic coincidence that adds this additional weight to the film. Okay, so a few years back, other Patrick, who might be an asshole but does share a lot of my opinions about movies, made this two-part deep dive on Coppola's filmography. And Megalopolis is, in many ways, the endearingly messy culmination of everything that he's been doing for more than 50 years. It has the power struggles of the wealthy elites from The Godfather, the colorful, hallucinatory visuals of Apocalypse Now, the silent film techniques of Dracula, the obsession with time, running out of it, or being able to control it, that has been running through a ton of his movies since the 80s. It's in Peggy Sue Got Married, and Dracula, and Youth Without Youth, and yes, even Jack. But if there are any two of Coppola's films that this one reminds me of, it is One from the Heart and Tucker, the Man in His Dream. As you may remember, after his unparalleled string of masterpieces in the 1970s, Coppola opened his own independent studio that aimed to revolutionize cinema and work outside of the Hollywood system. And he banked it all on their first film, One from the Heart, a hugely ambitious, stylized film that ended up being a huge commercial failure that tanked Coppola's new studio and left him tens of millions of dollars in debt. And then, 8 years later, he made Tucker, which was the true story of Preston Tucker, a man who started his own independent car company and tried to revolutionize the automotive industry and give America the car of the future, while that same automotive industry tried to destroy him. Sound familiar? This is exactly what Coppola has been doing, or at least trying to do, for his entire career. He even tried to do it for the first time back in the 60s, when he launched his independent production company, which, of course, aims to revolutionize American cinema, until a string of financial failures left them in debt, and so Francis had to shut it down and accept a gig at a Hollywood studio, and ended up making The Godfather. So yes, Megalopolis is a movie with a lot of flaws. It is awkward and misshapen, but it is unmistakably the work of one of the most interesting filmmakers who's ever lived. A man who clearly understands that you can't take it with you. And so here, in his mid-80s, he has done the filmmaking equivalent of pushing all his chips into the center of the table for one last huge bet. Look, I'll admit that when the movie ended, I did not know what to think. I am so glad that I didn't have to write a review immediately after, because it would have been incoherent. I do wonder if my positive feelings about it are more me loving the idea of the movie and loving that it exists, more than I love the actual movie or the experience of watching the movie. Because again, much of it doesn't really work dramatically. It often doesn't look good. The Thing is a mess. But another thing to consider. Coppola's last mainstream studio movie, his last quote-unquote normal movie, was The Rainmaker, back in 1997. That is a solid, very traditional narrative film. And the few movies he's made after that, Youth Without Youth, Tetro, and Twixt, are very different, much weirder, and much more experimental. And Megalopolis is just a big escalation of what he was doing with those. So there is a part of me that wonders, is he still totally capable of making more traditionally satisfying narrative films, but he's just choosing not to and experimenting with a different approach to filmmaking? Or, I don't know, has he just lost sight of how to do this well? I don't really have an answer, but this is why I think the movie is gonna play much, much better to like a Cannes Film Festival audience who are there to see Francis Ford Coppola's unfiltered vision than a mainstream audience who are buying tickets to see that new Adam Driver Aubrey Plaza movie. I don't know. There's just something so interesting about someone dumping everything that has been stored in their brain for 40 years out onto a movie theater screen that I can't walk away from this not feeling good. For months now, there has been all this talk about if and how Megalopolis is going to get released, if any studio is going to pick it up, and if it has any commercial prospects. Coppola obviously wants the movie to be seen by everyone in the world. He's feeling really good about it, and I think he really believes that this movie, could improve the state of humanity if everyone saw it. I'm just gonna say flat out that I am pretty certain that this is not going to be a mainstream hit. It is too goddamn weird, and because it's so flawed, most general audiences will just look at it and say, this is bad. I do hope that it gets picked up and gets a wide release and a ton of promotion to give it a big opening weekend, because after that opening weekend, it's definitely gonna drop off sharply from bad word of mouth. But I really don't think any of that matters at all. This is, in all likelihood, Coppola's final movie. The man is 85 years old, and yeah, I know that Clint Eastwood is still going at 94, but also Clint will make a movie in a week. This one took Francis 13 years. So whether Megalopolis succeeds or fails will not determine the rest of Coppola's career. This time, there's no studio that he's trying to launch. There's no other big passion project that he's trying to secure funding for. There's only Megalopolis and what its legacy will be in the years to come. I keep thinking about the choice to make this movie about an architect, because with architecture, it's not about the short-term success of the building's opening. A building is meant to last forever, long beyond the lifetime of its creators. Megalopolis is literally about the conflict between Catalina's long-term goals for the future and Cicero's short-term solutions. So the point of Megalopolis is not to make a profit. There's nothing riding on how this movie performs commercially. There's no Megalopolis 2: The Rise of Crassus in the works. What matters is the long term. The movie exists now, and it's something that can be rediscovered and reevaluated and debated and dissected for the rest of time. Assuming, of course, that cinema survives. But Coppola seems pretty optimistic that it will. Before the movie played, Francis Ford Coppola himself arrived at the theater. And to be clear, that is not something that happened before any of the other movies that I watched at Cannes. And he led the whole audience in this pledge to the human race, a true sign of the wacky, weird sincerity to come. So, I don't know if anything I just said was coherent. I don't even know if the movie is coherent. And to be honest, I still don't really know exactly how I feel about it, other than I was never bored. I'm thrilled that it exists, and I really can't wait to watch it again. Anyone I've talked to who saw it twice has said it definitely got better on a second viewing. And fingers crossed, whenever I get to watch it again, I really hope that it still has the guy with the microphone talking to the screen. And so, at the end of the day, was that weird-ass movie worth traveling to Cannes for? Of course. Yes. Absolutely. And one more thing I forgot to mention. So a big part of festivals like Cannes are the acquisitions. Most of these movies are produced independently, not by major studios. And so during the festivals, distributors and studios are there bidding on movies and trying to acquire them for release. So when a movie is a hit with audiences and critics, there's always the big question of who's going to pick it up? And not to editorialize too much, but I personally think it's a bummer when a cool movie like, I don't know, Emilia Perez that the audience is really into gets acquired by a distributor who you know is just going to dump it onto streaming and not give it a proper release. Which is why it's always a big relief to me when movies get picked up by Mubi, our sponsor for this episode. At Cannes this year, Mubi acquired some of the most talked about movies of the festival. In particular, The Substance, the body horror movie starring Margaret Qualley and Demi Moore that won the Best Screenplay Award and that everyone was constantly talking about, and I couldn't even get a ticket for because it was so popular. But now, I am very glad that Mubi got it, so I know that they're going to give it a proper theatrical release later this year, before it is available to stream on the Mubi app. They also got The Girl with the Needle, the serial killer drama that I also missed because it premiered in the first week and I arrived too late, but I heard such good things about it and I really can't wait to see it. In my opinion, Mubi is doing streaming better than just about anyone, since it's run and curated by people who love movies and strive to cultivate the best and most diverse library of films that you'll find anywhere. On the app right now, they even have an entire section dedicated to movies that premiered at Cannes in past years, such as Park Chan-wook's Decision to Leave, Bong Joon-ho's The Host, Blue is the Warmest Color, a past Palme d'Or winner, Abbas Kiarostami's Certified Copy, Olivier Assayas's Personal Shopper, and Clouds of Sils Maria for all you many Kristen Stewart enthusiasts. They have a ton of Lars von Trier movies, including Breaking the Waves, Dogville, Mandalay, and The House That Jack Built. And everyone loves Denis Villeneuve these days. They have his early film Polytechnique. They add new movies constantly, so there's always something exciting to watch. And it's where you'll be able to see some of the biggest hits from the Cannes Film Festival. I love Mubi, I think everyone should have it, and right now, if you want to try it out for yourself and watch some great movies, you can get 30 days of Mubi totally free by visiting mubi.com/Patrick H. Willems, or just click the link down there in the description. All right, so that's Mubi, and right now, I've got to leave this hotel room and go explore Stockholm. I think I'm going to get some meatballs for lunch. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.